Hi there, welcome back to our channel. In our previous videos on this series, we have established the total quantity of the materials, the construction activities, as well as the processes it took to bring this our twin four-bedroom duplex from the foundation to the DPC and from DPC to decking level. We also established that it cost this project, both material and labor, from the foundation to the DPC 14,956,750 naira, as well as from the DPC to the decking 10,805,000 naira to get this project to the decking level. And in today's video, we are going to look through the construction activities and also the quantity of materials that it will take to complete this decking of approximately 321 square meters. Stay tuned as we take you through the process. So once the leveling of block is completed, which in most cases is dependent on the height of that is the headroom of the building as per design, and in some cases the request from the client. This could be either 3 blocks, 3 courses of block, or 4. But in this case, what we did here is 4 courses of block to level to the decking. Now, after that is completed, the next thing we do is to start taking the beams, which is more or less used to ensure that the decking is on a relatively plumb level. So the decking is what we start by taking the height of the beam from one end of the decking and then plumbing it to the other end, and of course plumbing it around the building, then putting the beam, the woods for the beam to ensure that we get the spaces where the iron work is going to enter. And of course this gives us a relatively level, plumb level decking by the end of the day. Now after that is completed, and it depends on how the work is. In some projects, you may have to wait until every other thing is completed before the iron work starts. But depending on the project schedule and of course the targets given to the workers, the next thing we could do is do both iron work and the boarding concurrently. So that implies after the carpenters have done a reasonable amount of work, the iron bender will then start doing the beams. As he's working on the beams, then the carpenters are continuing with the other parts of the building. And of course, this is done making reference to the structural drawing, because the structural design in most cases will have specifications for each beam. All the beams are not the same, because they anticipate the load each beam is going to carry and then give it its design. It could be, for instance, 16 mm. But now the quantity and how it is going to be tied will be decided by the structural design. So it's now for you to make reference to that and then ensure that each beam is treated exactly the way it is expected to be treated. It is designed to be treated. And by the end of the day, once all the beams are gotten, then the matting of the decking starts. Now, the matting is done following a specific design. Like I said, everything in construction, particularly in building construction, has its own design and specifications. Once you make reference to the structural drawing, you will see all these things as is. So, for instance, this spacing of these 12 rods is at most 150 millimeters. Now, by the time the iron bender puts in place all these iron works for the matting, and of course crosses it, because it's done at a cross, vertical and horizontal, so you have like a spacing in between each of them of at most 150 millimeters, like you can see here. By the end of that, then it's being tied together, linking each of them to the beams and the rest of it. Now, after this comes the electrical work. And before the electrician starts his work, he will have to lift up the mat a little bit and then put the concrete biscuits, which elevates the iron rods from the boarding of the decking. Now, it does two works. First, to ensure that we have a reasonable concrete cover. Two, to help hold these mats, these iron rods in place so that it does not compress and break the electrical pipes that are going to be put in place. And once this one is completed, then the next thing that comes in place is the plumbing work, because the plumber will have to come and put in the pipes, the drain pipes for all the places, the bathrooms as well as the kitchens or any other place that needs a drain pipe. And when this is completed, then the next thing is the casting of the decking. Now, before the casting begins, care should be taken to ensure that the iron work is inspected to confirm that everything is as designed. And for instance, in this project, when we inspected, we noticed that the extension columns, the columns that are supposed to project from inside the decking to allow for overlapping of the extension columns, was not up to 600 millimeters. So what we did was to ensure that we added the extension columns now before the casting happens, because if we had waited until after the casting, it would have been very short and would not meet up with the design of having the 600 millimeters overlap. So that's aspect of the job is very important. After completing any job, you sit back, inspect what you have done, and confirm that everything still tallies with the design. After that, then the casting takes place. casting of decking was completed, it was observed that the following materials had been used. The 1 by 12 was 550, 2 by 3 by 12 was 300, the bamboo was 400 lengths, then the 16 mm rods were 90 lengths, the 12 mm rods were 450, the 8 mm rods were 150. The binding wire was 4 bundles. The cement used for the casting of decking was 210. Then the granite, that is a complete 20 tons, were 3, making it 60 tons of granite. Then the sand that was used is the whole truck, that is a complete 30 tons. That was 3 trips. Then of course there were provisions for the electrical and plumbing piping. The total cost of all the materials used to cast this 321 square meter decking was 40,070,000 naira. Whereas the total cost of all the labor that was put in place to bring this milestone to completion was 2 million naira. And that brings the total cost of material and labor to 16,070,000 naira. Thank you for being with us this far, and see you on the next one.